What's up guys, in this video I'm going to explain how to properly use a rotary buffer. So I've had a few of you reach out to me and ask me how to properly use a rotary buffer on a boat, so that's exactly what I'm going to explain. This is going to be kind of a shorter video, but I'm just going to explain the overall concept of how to properly use this machine. That way it doesn't wear you out, and then that way you get perfect results every single time. Like always, if you get any value out of this, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that little bell notification so every time I make a video it'll pop up. Also comment down below and I will get back to you personally as soon as I can. Alright, so before we get into how to use this thing, let's kind of explain why you even need it. This machine is going to be your heavy cutting machine. So you are going to do all of your cutting steps. If a boat has any oxidation on it, or like this boat here, we're kind of wet sanding it and removing some oxidation, you are always going to cut with this machine, a rotary polisher, and a wool pad. This is going to be your heavy duty cutting pad. But you always want to follow it up with some type of DA and a foam pad, because this machine is going to leave swirls and holograms and scratches in the boat. A lot of people go wrong and they only use this machine and a wool pad and they don't follow up with the DA afterwards, and it leaves holograms like this. Most of you guys already probably know what a rotary is. You may have experience using it on a car, so I'm going to explain exactly how to properly use it on a boat right now. One of my biggest pet peeves, man, is when detailers, you'll watch people out there and they've got their machine on 3,000 RPMs and there's no pattern, there's no system, they're just going to town. Compound is only going to work if you actually use it in the way that it's meant to be used. If you're just running it at 3,000 RPMs and you're just cranking it and you're just going to town, you're not actually doing anything. You have to let the buffer do the work. You have to let the pad actually do the work. And a lot of that comes to arm speed, okay? So you want to keep your arm speed real slow. Watching the video how slow my cadence is. I'm not like wah, 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 up and down, all around, looks like you're freaking sword fighting, okay? I'm going a very specific, slow cadence, all right? That's all you want, side to side, up, down. It's almost like dancing. You have to do it in a very specific way, because if you're just like going side to side quickly, up and down, the pad is spinning. So if you're moving horizontally very fast, it's gonna do this. Versus if it's spinning and you're going slow, look how much it's gonna be working in the compound, all right? The pad and the speed of the pad is actually doing the polishing. So you wanna make sure you're slow so that pad has enough time to keep cutting and cutting and cutting and cutting and cutting, versus just running down the surface and it barely makes any loops. I know that was a lot of jibber jabber. I hope that actually makes sense to you guys. That is one of the biggest things, is actually making sure your arm speed is slow so the pad can actually do the cutting. So when you are polishing with a rotary buffer, and really any buffer, but specifically a rotary buffer in this video, you kind of want to always do like a little bit bigger than a shoulder width section. So kind of map up your shoulders and just do a little bit bigger than the shoulder width. That's usually going to be the perfect kind of working area so the compounds don't dry on you in the sun. For muscle memory, it just kind of helps you mentally break it up into sections and you work your way all the way down the boat. So you want to put an ample amount of compound on the wool pad, so when you're buffing it, you're working in the compound and it's not just the pad, it's actually working in the compound and the pad. First, let's kind of get the pad ready. You always want to make sure your pad is nice and fluffy. Okay, so as you can see here, it's got a nice fluff to it. When we're doing a shoulder width section, when you're using your compound, I personally kind of like to just do like lines like this, all right? As you can see, that's not really a specific amount, but it's the perfect amount to kind of glaze the entire pad so we could work it into the actual surface area. All right, so now that we have our section kind of mapped out, with shoulder width, the first thing you're gonna wanna do is dab it onto the surface. So you got your compound, you wanna just kind of dab it onto your surface like so. All right, so I dabbed it in kind of my shoulder width section. Now we want to bump our machine to probably like the 1.5 to 2 setting. I don't know if you can see it on there. And then we just kind of want to just work it in just enough to kind of evenly spread the compound. So there you can see it, just kind of worked it in. So now it's evenly, there's an even amount of compound on the surface. And now it's time to actually do our polishing or our actual cutting. Now, what you're gonna notice, guys, is my buffer is not completely flat on the surface. As you can see right here, see how my buffer is completely flat? When I'm doing my compounding, I am actually having it on an angle just like that. Okay, so I can almost stick my entire hand in there. All right, so the reason why we want to do this is because if you're flat, that's actually pretty good for finishing, but when we're cutting, we want to have a precise spot where we're actually doing our cutting, which is usually about this big. So when you have it on an angle, all of your cutting power is right in this area, okay? Not spread out around the whole surface. So what you want to do is you want to angle so you can precisely cut in the exact motion. And what you're gonna see, and this is the biggest key, guys, when you're using any buffer, but really the rotary now in this video, is going to be going side to side, all right? And then we're gonna go up and down, and then we're gonna go side to side, and then finish it one more time side to side. All right, so side to side, up, down, side to side, and then back up side to side. And usually, guys, 9 out of 10, that system exactly right there is going to give you perfect results every single time. That ensures you that it's going to get every single square inch of the area and at different angles. Most boat detailers out there will just go wow, 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 you know, side to side, and you're not getting a precise, perfect angle and a precise system to doing it. And guys, it's going to leave holograms and jack your boat up. And what we want to do is we want to fix boats, not just cover them up with compound. I'm going side to side and up down for the first time. I'm usually on like the 2 setting on the Makita, which I believe is around 1500 RPMs, which is about normal. And then once I'm done the side to side and the up and down, and I'm kind of on that last side to side step, I usually crank it up about a half a click, which will probably bring it around like 1800 to 1900 RPMs just to really work it in. And I'm using lighter pressure. On my side to side, on my up down the first time, I'm using kind of heavier pressure, you know, with it being on 1500 RPMs, and then I kind of let up on my pressure and then bump it up just about 1 click just to kind of work out the product. So let's go ahead and watch me. I'm not gonna speed this clip up, I'm not gonna slow it down. This is the exact tempo you need to follow every single time. So as soon as you are finished, we worked our whole section from here to here. Now, as soon as we're finished, we're just gonna go ahead and wipe off the residue. It should be perfectly even worked in. You don't wanna see a bunch of like chunks or like a whole bunch of extra compound. It should look perfectly even on the surface. So go ahead and wipe it off. All right, so now that we have it wiped off, we can actually see that the surface is completely buffed. Now, this isn't going to be a video on perfectly finishing a surface. You always want to follow up with a polisher after this step. This is just, I'm actually in the middle of doing a boat, and in my next video will actually be me restoring this whole entire boat. But I did just want to make a specific video on how to properly use the actual buffer. Now, as you can see, we did this step, and now this pad is nice and caked. All the compound is caked on there. So what we want to do now is clean this off, okay? So you can use 2 options. You can have a spur, or you can actually, what I typically use is just the end of my bottle here. Now, it will kind of destroy these over time, but guys, I constantly lose my spurs and leave them places, and I get tired of paying 15 bucks every time I leave one. So usually the best bet for me is just to use the tip of my bottle, and all you really got to do is just go ahead. And a big mistake, guys, is most people crank these things up to 3,000 RPMs right now. All you got to do is just leave it on the lowest RPM and just run it, and just put the tip in there just like this. And look at that. Now there's still a little bit of clumps in there, but for the most part it's just refluffed. All you're looking to do when you're cleaning your pad like this is just to refluff it. You don't need to get every little bit of compound off. That's not the goal. The goal is just to refluff it. It has to be fluffy. If it's flat and slick and the compound is stuck to that, you're actually going to do more damage than anything. You have to have a fluffy pad. If you do this exact same system, which I know I said a lot, and I know this is kind of a shorter video than I normally do, but I promise you guys, if you do this system for every time you use a rotary buffer, you're going to get perfect results. Now, there is different scenarios where you need more aggressive compounds, more aggressive pads, and I get into all that into all my other videos, but I wanted to make this specific video specifically on how to properly use the rotary buffer. Just go ahead, rewatch this video multiple times if you have to get the system right and the speeds correctly. That's it for this video. I look forward to seeing you on the next video.
I can't see a way out. I've been stacking face down off canvases I painted. I just spent the rain day on drip I can't afford, but that's the price I pay for the memories I'm making. I've been going places, I've been shaking hands for a chance to really make it. This life is so abrasive, so I almost gave in. All this that I'm laying, it's only the foundation. I've been going crazy, trying to find a way. I was in the basement, trying to turn the page. I was going through the phase, nobody see my face. I was chasing at the paper, been all it for the waiters, but everything again, ain't nothing left to lose. I've been breaking rules, I've been making moves, with everything to prove. Now it's going how I see it through my lens, but it's stuck in my head. I can't seem to get away from it. I went out of my way, I'm trying to feel the eye again. I've lost somewhere in my head. I've been out here all on my own, holding tight to the pledge. I'm somewhere near the edge of wishing we never met. I'm scared of being without you, afraid no one ever know me. I'm out near the edge, and I can't get inside of my head yet. Looking like who I'm becoming, it's all I ever wanted. Never like me when you're sober, only like you when I'm lonely. Got me looking in the mirror for the self-diagnosis. Feel like they villainize me for they ever get to know me. They tell me that you need me, the action didn't show it. Knowing that you play the angles, and I'm seeing through your motives. But the weight down on my shoulder, found a way to hold it. I can't keep my focus, barely keep composure. How